की जय। बिंद्रावन बिहारी लाल की जय। सब कोई जय सीताराम। It is very heartening to see so many persons here this morning, and I want to extend a very warm and a very special welcome to each and every one of you, your footsteps having led you here to the Mandir. For all persons who would be viewing us online, either on YouTube or on Facebook, Shubh Swagatam, as we welcome you to our Sunday morning puja and satsang here at the Krishna Mandir, 40 Todd Street, San Fernando. Please permit me this morning to extend a very, very special welcome to Uncle Ranjit Jamuna, who is here with us. Uncle Ji, it is so very, very nice to see you, and we're very, very happy to have you with us this morning. And may Bhagwan continue to bless you abundantly. This morning we will be joined by Professor Roger Mohammed. Professor Roger Hussain, please forgive me. Professor Hussain is a very esteemed lecturer at the University of the West Indies, and he will be delivering to us a very wonderful message this morning. And after that is complete, we will be given the opportunity to pose certain questions to the professor that we may have. In that regard, depending upon the time, we may vary slightly with regard to the congregational arti. So if time does not allow, then the arti will take place after we conclude our service this morning. At this juncture, however, I want to invite everyone to stand as we commence with invocation, as we commence with prayer this morning. And we gaze at the murtis before us, and whichever form we find most endearing, most appealing, we focus exclusively on that form. With love and with devotion, O Prabhu, we come before you. We express that gratitude for the blessings bestowed upon each of us, the blessing of life, of good health, of happiness, of peace. We ask for continued protection and mercy against all difficulties that we experience, against all trials, and indeed against all tribulations. For persons who may be facing difficulties or obstacles, sickness of whatever kind, afflictions of whatever kind, we ask that you uplift them all, O Prabhu. As we immerse ourselves in that majesty that is Bhagwan, let us indeed surrender ourselves completely to him as we immerse ourselves in prayer this morning. Hari Om Shri Ganeshaya Namah. Om Shri Saraswate Namah. Om Shri Guru Charana Kamalebhyo Namaha. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Guru Me Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvara Jayanti Mangala Kali Bhadrakali Kapalini Durga Kshama Shiva Dhatri Swaha Swadha Namostute Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Bande Jagadguru Nagindraharaya Trilochanaya Bhasmangaragaya Maheshwaraya Nityaya Shuddhaya Digambaragaya Tasmai Nakaraya Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandramabhedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaye Pataye Namaha. Om Manojavam Marutatulyavegyam Jitindriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam Vatatmajam Vanadiyutamukam Shri Ramadutam Shri Namami. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Bhaiti, as we join in opening Kirtan, as we offer our salutations to Ganesh Bhagwan, let us sing lustily, let us clap, let us glorify the name of Bhagwan as we pray together.
जय जय गणपति, जय गणपति, जय गणेश, जय गणपति, जय 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 गणपति, जय गणपति, जय गणेश, जय गणपति, जय जय गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हारी, गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हारी, गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हारी, गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हारी, गणपति जय गणपति, जय गणेश, जय गणपति, जय जय लंबोदर पीतांबर सोहे, हरिमणि मुकुट नयन रत्नारे, लंबोदर पीतांबर सोहे, हरिमणि मुकुट नयन रत्नारे, गजमणि माल गले बिच सोहे, गजमणि माल गले बिच सोहे, बाल ललामी चंद्रकला में, गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हारी, गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हारी, गणपति जय गणपति, जय गणेश, जय गणपति, जय जय मोदक लीत दीत जननी, जब ठुमक झलकनु पुर झनकारे, मोदक दीत जननी, जब ठुमक झलकनु पुर झनकारे, रिधि सीधी दो चवर दुलावत, रिधि सीधी दो चवर दुलावत, सुर समूह लखी होत सुखारी, गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हारी, गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हारी, गणपति जय गणपति, जय गणेश, जय गणपति, जय 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 गणपति, जय गणपति, जय गणेश, जय गणपति, जय 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 गणेश, जय गणपति, जय 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 गणेश, जय गणपति, जय जय
प्रेम से बोले श्री गणेश भगवान की जय. Of appearance of brought to this land the Hanuman Chalisa. It is a Chalisa that we sing most Sunday mornings, giving us that courage in the midst of turbulent and difficult times, giving us that strength to overcome all adversity. In these current times that we are experiencing in this country, now more than ever, we need to immerse ourselves in prayer to give us that strength and that courage to meet the challenges that we are facing. And so this morning, as the group leads us in Hanuman Chalisa, I invite us all once more to join together as we sing, as we clap, and lustily as we glorify Mahavir Swami.
श्री गुरु चरण सरोज रज, निज मन मुकुर सुधार, बरनो रघुबर विमल जसु, जो दायक पल चार, बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके, सुमिरो पवन कुमार, बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि, हरहु कलेश विकार, जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर, जय कपीस तिहु लोक उजागर। रामदूत अतुलित बल धामा, अंजलि पुत्र पवन सुत नामा। महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी, कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी। कंचन वरण विराज सुवेशा, कानन कुंडल कुंचित केसा। हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे, कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे। शंकर सुमन केसरी नंदन, तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन। विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर, राम काज करिबे को आतुर। प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया, राम लखन सीता मन बसिया। सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा, विगत रूप धरि रंग जरावा। भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे, रामचंद्र के काज सवारे। लाय सजीवन लखन जियाए, श्री रघुवीर हर्ष उर लाए। रघुपति की और देवता चित्त न धरई, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई। संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा, जो सुमिरै हनुमत बलबीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाई। जो शत बार पाठ करे कोई, छूटहि बंधे महासुख होई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होई सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, कीजय नाथ हृदय महाडेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरण, मंगल मूरति रूप। राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुरभूप। सियापति रामचंद्र जी की जय शरणम, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय।
प्रेम से बोले श्री महावीर स्वामी की जय. As we've been doing since the beginning of this year, each and every Sunday morning, an initiative of Pandit Devendra, we have been reading the shlokas from Bhagavad Gita in English, so as to allow ourselves the opportunity, firstly, to read the entire Bhagavad Gita, and secondly, the opportunity to familiarize ourselves with the shlokas. There are copies of Bhagavad Gita that are available on each of the benches, so if you just gaze to the sides, there are copies available. Please acquire or put your hands on one of the copies. And I'd want to say at this juncture that while this is a literal reading, it is really meant to pique interest and to initiate that thirst. And for those persons who would like to explore and delve more deeply into the philosophy, the Mandir has had running for several years now Bhagavad Gita class led by Pandit Anil Maharaj. And that class is designed, and many of you who are in fact students of the class, that class is designed to take you through the shlokas in more detail and to go through the philosophy. So those persons, even those who are viewing online at this moment, we invite you to inquire further about that class so that you can indeed go further into the verses and into the Bhagavad Gita, and so embed that philosophy into your various lives and that of your family. This morning, as we take Bhagavad Gita, touch to our forehead and offer pranam. 2 shlokas we will recite from Gita Dhyanam before I invite Elisha, who volunteered last week, and she will take us through verses 30 to 43. That is the remaining shlokas from chapter 3. So we will be looking at those shlokas, and while she's reading, we are all joining together with her at that point. So while Elisha makes her way to the podium, we join in a few moments of contemplation. Hari Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Bhande Jagatguru Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulang Dayage Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Paramanandamamadavam. Shri Krishnai Govindai Namo Namaha. Are we ready with the slides? Shloks 30, right? So the slides are up as well for those of you who do not have a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. And I now hand over to Elisha.
Sitaram. Therefore, dedicating all actions to me with your mind fixed on me, the self of all, freed from desire and the feeling of miyam, and cured of mental agitation, fight. Even those men who, with an uncavilling and devout mind, always follow this teaching of mine, are released from the bondage of all actions. But they, however, who, finding fault with this teaching of mine, do not follow it, take those fools to be deluded in the matter of all knowledge as lost. All living creatures follow their tendencies. Even the wise man acts according to the tendencies of his own nature. Of what use is restraint by force? Attraction and repulsion are rooted in all sense objects. Man should never allow himself to be swayed by them, because they are the two principal enemies standing in the way of his redemption. One's own duty, though devoid of merit, is preferable to the duty of another well performed. Even death in the performance of one's own duty brings blessedness. Another's duty is fraught with fear. Arjun said, "Now impelled by what, Krishna? Does this man commit sin even involuntarily, as though driven by force?" Sri Bhagwan said, "It is desire begotten of the element of rajas, which appears as wrath. Nay, it is insatiable and grossly wicked. Know this to be the enemy in this case. As fire is covered by smoke, mirror by dust, an embryo by the amnion, so is knowledge covered by desire. And Arjuna, knowledge stands covered by this eternal enemy of the wise, known as desire, which is insatiable like fire. The senses, the mind, and the intellect are declared to be its seat. Covering the knowledge, through these it, desire, deludes the embodied soul. Therefore, Arjuna, you must first control your senses, and then kill this evil thing which obstructs jnana, knowledge of the absolute or nirgun Brahma, and vijnana, knowledge of sakar Brahma or manifest divinity. The senses are said to be greater than the body, but greater than the senses is the mind. Greater than the mind is the intellect, and what is greater than the intellect is he, the self. Thus, Arjun, knowing the self which is higher than the intellect and subduing the mind by reason, kill this enemy in the form of desire that is hard to overcome.
प्रेम से बोले बिंद्रावन बिहारी लाल की जय। गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय गोविंद जय
जय गोपाल जय जय
गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय
गोविंद जय जय गोपाल जय जय
राधा रमन हरि गोविंद 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 जय जय
गोविंद जय जय गोपाल 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 जय जय
राधा रमन हरि गोविंद 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 जय जय
गोविंद जय जय गोपाल 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 जय जय
प्रेम से बोले बिंद्रावन बिहारी लाल की जय. So we have concluded chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita. Next week we will commence chapter 4, and again we would want to request volunteers. This time we will be doing shlokas 1 to 10 of chapter 4. So persons can ponder a little bit about whether you would want to come forward and to read these shlokas 1 to 10 of chapter 4. And as I said, those of you who want to delve deeper into the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, Pandit Anil Maharaj and company, they are running a Gita class, Bhagavad Gita class. It's every Wednesday, I believe. It's on Zoom, Anilji, yes? On Zoom, so you could get the link and you could inquire more, and you can therefore join in the immersing yourselves in the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita. So anybody who's interested in chanting or reciting the first 10 shlokas next week, you can see me after service, and then we will have you slotted in. Are we having Balvihar class? Yes, so children, the small children of the Balvihar class, we invite you to please move forward with your teacher. So all of the small ones, we invite you to move across to the annex for the Balvihar class at this time. Brothers and sisters, it's indeed our great honor and privilege this morning, as we announced last week, to have a very esteemed son of the soil with us. Professor Roger Hussain is almost a household name. We know him on various quarters. He would appear in the media, giving very, very profound views on various topics affecting our economy, sustainability, and so on. He has graduated from the University of West Indies, St. Augustine, with a first-class honors. He then acquired thereafter his PhD at University of Cambridge in the United Kingdom. He is a senior lecturer at the Economics Department, Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine. He leads many esteemed units of that university, and he's an author and co-author of several books. I could spend the entire morning espousing about his accomplishments and competencies, but I won't do so, Professor G. We are indeed very heartened and very happy that you have agreed to join with us this morning to speak with us on the topic of agriculture and the topic of economy and sustainability and food production in this country and how it applies to us as individuals. And therefore, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Professor Roger Hussain to the podium, please.
Sitaram. So it's really a pleasure to be here. You know, we live in very troubled times as a country. Not a day goes by that I look at this data and don't be concerned. You know, I spend a lot of time reflecting on where will this country be in the next 5 to 7 years, and sometimes it's worrying. I know this data well, and I can see until 2030, and I'm worried that I'm not seeing no corners to turn as it stands, you know, from various angles. And one of the things that the situation brings to the fore, thank you, is our agricultural situation. And it comes to the fore particularly as between the time period 2014 to 2022, the economy contracted 21%. Now, that's an enormous contraction. That's like living on $1 and then living on 79 cents. That's an enormous contraction. And even with me, you know, when my children say they want ABC, I say, okay, good, that's good, very good. But then let's put them in an order and see which one you really need. That's how I see the economy. I'm doing some work for Tutor and helping them with their negotiations, and it's not looking good. It's not looking good in the sense that what they are asking for, and I'm not seeing the means by which we could give them it. And this brings us to the situation in the agricultural sector. You know, in order to understand what is going on in the agricultural sector, it's critical to understand the state of the economy as a whole. Now, here it is, we have a country in which we produced between 2006 and 2022, 4.1 billion barrels of oil and gas equivalent. So if somehow I could take this gas and put it in a container and call it an equivalent a barrel of oil, we produce 4.1 billion barrels of oil equivalent. Yet still, in that same time period from 2006 to 2022, our economy contracted about 3%. So let me repeat that. Here it is, you have about 100 mango trees in your yard, and you pick all the mangoes every year from 2006 to 2022, and you sell the mangoes, and when you sit down with your family and to count how much money you have, after selling all these mangoes, you realize you have $3 less. That's basically where the Trinidad and Tobago economy, how is it has operated between 2006 and 2022. And you know, one of the things I remember when I was invited to come and talk this morning is I remember a speech that I saw you give in relation to the property over the road. And I did, from the moment I heard your commentary, I reached out immediately to a friend of mine, Devesh Maharaj. And I said, but who is this man? This man sounds so eloquent and so profound. And then Devesh spoke to me and explained certain things. And this is how I see the Trinidad and Tobago economy. After all this effort by all political parties, not by a political party, because this is a long time period, this is where we have found ourselves, worst off. So all the mangoes on the tree for the period 2006 to 2022, we have sold it. And yet still, when we talk to our children and talk to them about going to university, we saying, hold up, we don't have enough money, some of the money gone. Next slide. And you know, even if that was the case, because man shall not live by bread alone, even if that was the case, but you felt safe, you know, so you could say, well, I could do with some money less, okay, I would live. But let me see if I could walk the road safe and have a good chat with my neighbors and probably, you know, stay out late in various, you can't. The murder situation in this country has exploded. It's terrible. I did a forecast of the amount of murders for 2023, and it is the highest ever since recorded data. So it is a time when we have to be very, very careful about how we move and where we go. So it's a very straining time. Next slide. And in this context and in this setting, even the number of people employed in Trinidad and Tobago has fallen considerably from 636,000 to 566,000. That's a sharp decline, so it means there are less people to carry the responsibilities in the country. And, you know, it only puts pressure on the system having this smaller number of people. Now, there is a trick in the system, because if you were to hear my good friend, the Minister of Finance, speak, you would hear him say the country is at full employment. And he's not telling you all a lie. It is the truth. The country is at full employment, which for economists means an unemployment rate of less than 5%. The country is at full employment because a considerable number of people has decided not to be part of the labor force. So you have to ask yourself, why? What are these people? When they drop out of the labor force, where do they go? What are they doing? And I think I don't have strong data. I have data, but not data of the magnitude that could allow me to do causality testing. But the data suggests that they are going to form gangs in part. So we have an ugly society where the number of people working has fallen considerably. They are not part of the labor force, yet still the labor force is showing like it is at full employment, everybody is working, and at the same point in time, we are seeing the rise in gangs and murders. And I suspect it's because the fallout from the labor market is ending up in the wrong place, doing wrong type of activities. And here you are seeing it. You are seeing more on the age dependency, so there are more people dependent on the young people that are working. And you are also seeing a decline in the purchasing capability of the dollar. So if a dollar could have bought, if a dollar could have bought 100 items in 2014, today it can only buy 75 items. That's what has happened to the value of money in Trinidad and Tobago. So when I meet the teachers or the prison officers or the firemen, and I try to help them behind the scenes, these are the type of things that they raise. They say that the purchasing capability of their money has fallen so much. How can they live on a fixed income? The truth is there isn't much money in the system to make a difference in terms of what people earn right now. And if all of those things that I have said, none of this data is mine, all of this is World Bank or IMF data. 3 weeks ago, a report came out from the IMF. The report comes out in two forms, a preliminary form and a definitive form. In the preliminary form, the report indicated that the Trinidad and Tobago economy contracted 4.5% more than on the listed official data we have in Trinidad. Now, 4.5% is a significant contraction. I think, as a consequence, the Minister of Finance has spoken to the IMF and told them not to issue the definitive report. Just leave the preliminary report in the public domain so much people wouldn't pick it up. But the fact is it has contracted by a further 4.5%, which leaves us, if prior to using this slide, we were in a bad situation. When I pull up this slide, it leaves us in a fragile situation. And a country's strength in terms of fetching export revenues really depends on how strong it is externally. A fancy word economists use called the real effective exchange rate. And whereas we thought we were improving in terms of external competitiveness, which is what the real effective exchange rate shows, what the most recent IMF data indicates is that it is actually getting worse. So it is very difficult to earn export revenues from the Trinidad and Tobago economy because our economy has become more externally uncompetitive. And whilst I'm here to talk about agriculture, and I will go into that in the next slide, I'm seeing young people, so I am, as an educator, forced to say that there is no better time in the history of this country to put in more hours behind your book. So if you know you're doing 6 hours work, put in 7. If you're putting in 7 hours work, put in 8. If you're putting in 8 hours work, put in 9. If you're on the borderline for a grade 2, put in the work to try and get a grade 1. Because even with a degree, it is going to become difficult to get a job in this country. That's the brute fact. In fact, the unemployment rate among people with tertiary level education, as we speak, is the highest since data came out. And that's for probably the last 30 years. So it's, even with a degree, it's going to be difficult. So you have to make sure when you get that degree, a degree is like, now is like a prerequisite for saying good morning. So you meet somebody and you say good morning, you need a degree to do that. That's how tough this country is now. Amidst all of this, we have a shock to food prices. The shock took 2 major forms. First, it was because of COVID-19 and restriction to exports and imports in various parts of the world. And then, of course, the Russia-Ukraine war. Some of you all would know that Russia and Ukraine produces a significant amount of the global wheat in the world, the amount of maize or corn produced in the world, and other important agricultural products. So once those two economies are engaged with war, and you can't plant and therefore export as much as you want, it affects global prices of these commodities, and by extension, because these commodities are an important part of the food basket overall, it affects the overall global food price indices. And we feel the ripples in Trinidad and Tobago. Things were compounded in November and October last year in Trinidad because there were some heavy floods. Now, next slide. And what you have is that for many years, we went about, walking in the park, having a good life, taking it easy because oil money was flowing. And so you could go to Massey stores, and I go to Massey store with my daughter sometime, and sometime when I watch it, surely I see raspberry and blueberry and cranberry, and I have to tell her, listen, you could get one of those things. We don't have the foreign exchange. Buy sapodilla or something. Of course, that creates a little fight, and I have to manage it. But the truth is, we don't have the foreign exchange as we used to. Our stock of international reserves at the central bank is 6.2 billion. And our external debt is about 6.9 billion. They are fairly equal. We don't have any surplus money of the kind that some people sometimes speak to you all about. We don't. The money is done. And employment in agriculture, which would help generate output in agriculture, is very much on the decline since the 1990s. And so the investments and the employment required to generate output in agriculture is just not there. So we are very food dependent on the external market, which needs foreign exchange. Our external uncompetitiveness is rising. Our per capita GDP is on the decline. Our external debt is on the rise. It's the highest in recorded history. And so the country is in a situation. So after all of that, some of us, mainly economists from the university, we formed the NGO in 2010, mainly to study the unemployment rate in the country and how we could make some contribution to reduce the unemployment levels in the country. But when COVID-19 struck, we added a small dimension to our NGO, the Shore Foundation, in which we started to go around meeting households in different parts of the country, and I hope one or two of you all here benefited from our seedling distribution. And we shared out seedlings. To date, we have reached about 2.6 million seedlings en route to 5 million seedlings, and we are also aiming at 100,000 fruit trees. We have to do this. We have to do this as Trinidad and Tobago nationals that love our country, that choose to stay here. I mean, I could have been working at the World Bank, IMF. I choose to be in this country. And by extension, if you are here, you have to contribute. And we see the externality benefits of giving these seedlings. You pull some carbon dioxide out of the air. You help to boost national food security. You help to reduce demand for foreign exchange, to buy goods from agricultural goods from abroad. We see it as national service. And I'm saying to each and every one of you all here, the growth of the Trinidad and Tobago economy for 2023 to 2030 is going to be very weak. The probability of dragon gas is very low, in my understanding of the facts. And so you need to think ahead strategically as to how you could reduce your household expenditures, how you could increase your savings in the context of rising prices, and how you could, by extension, increase the amount of food that you produce at home in some small way. Now, this may mean using paint pan. If you don't, I don't think you should go and buy $275 for a bag of soil. I think you should wait until CPEP works and collect some of the soil that they put on the side of the road when they heap up grass and the little soil that remains underneath, and use that. Try to keep thinking, how can I get low-cost agricultural output going in my household? Because not that this is going to make an enormous difference. What it is going to change is your behavioral tendencies. Because in my understanding, we need to do those things in a more pronounced way. I don't want to tell you all for the next 25 years. I am only going to say 7 years for the time being, but those of you all who could read between the lines, I'm going to say to you that we are not going to see a natural gas boom of the form that we saw between 1999 and 2015 again. So we are in a new normal. There is no better time to sit with your children than now, especially those under 15 years, and intensively talk to them about the need to get a sounder education and to do better at school than they may have done. There is no better time than now to change the amount of time that you spend with your children. If it is you were spending 1 hour with them for schoolwork for the week, in my opinion, spend a little more time with them, because that is the investment that would bail out households in the future. It's going to be tough. And so it's investment in human capital formation, investment in agriculture, that would change the output of your household production function and give you a chance, a reasonable chance, in the medium-term period to ride out what would be a new normal in the trajectory of economic growth for this small Twin Island Republic. So at this point, I would take about 3 questions, if anybody has, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Let's extend our congratulations and our Professor Hussain for that contribution, and he did indicate, and I did announce, that he was going to leave room for us to ask questions of him. So at this juncture, there is a cordless mic that is roving around. If you have a question that you would like to pose, and we are seeing one, Dr. Ampersad is raising his hand already. So can we pass the mic? There's a mic there.
Sitaram, with regard to your negotiations, I'd just like to find out, since according to your graphs, the value of the money is decreasing, I'd just like to find out whether it makes sense to settle now for what you could get, rather than stretching it out and having something, looking for something for more percentage later on that you may not get, and take what you could get now when you negotiate in salaries.
Okay, thank you. For confidentiality reasons, I would have to answer that carefully. The medium term is not going to improve in any sharp way. The capacity to pay is very low, and job retention should be a priority. So I don't know if anything I said there is of use. But certainly for me at the university, I am focused. I stay out of the negotiations with the university for obvious reasons, but I am contented to keep my job, knowing the numbers that I know. Because there is a probability that we could ask for the wrong thing and then, like Petrochin, end up in the wrong position. So that's as best as I can answer you. Next week is court. So.
I have another question from Vandana. So the mic is coming.
Hi, Sitaram. So you spoke a lot about investment in human capital. And as a young person, I do believe that that will solve a lot of our societal problems, including the ones you mentioned today. But you made a comment about parents sitting with their children, etc. And I know, knowing my peers and people in the Mandir, that the children and young people here are all very brilliant and dedicated in their work. So is there perhaps a plan or outreach for targeted areas that are not really focusing on the education and investment in human capital that could improve those areas? Because that's something that we work on a lot in the Mandir and as a community here, but is something being done in those circles where outreach is not, regularly done, or where those areas are suffering more?
Very good question. So some homes, by construct, culturally, it's parents focus on your children. That's what you exist for almost. Then there are these block of homes in which that is not the norm. So on Friday, I visited Gasparolo Hindu School. We are going around the country in a slow way. It's a very slow process. We are switching from community focus on agriculture to trying to visit each school. So we visited Gasparolo Hindu School. I spoke to the principal there. And we are trying via the 4-H club to get some of the children more involved in agriculture and the various learnings that could take place. One of these strategies may be that faith-based institutions, because you all can't save the world, the best you all may be able to start off with is to focus on your own, and then as time go by, look laterally. One of the things that you all should probably consider is what can be done for these specific schools. Now, some schools and some institutions, as you mentioned, there are children already taken care of. But when I visited the Gasparolo Hindu School, I saw some things and I heard some things that I know there is the need for more intervention. not necessarily financial, but guidance and otherwise. So my little 2 cents response to you is that start with one school, and once you master helping that school and you learn a model that could be replicated, slowly move on to the other schools. And I'm not talking about the general performance of the school here. I'm talking about the type of children you mentioned here, those that kind of fall out of the nets. I mean, it's well understood that denominational schools tend to do good, and even Hindu children, a lot of Hindu children go to Naparima Girls and they excel. Believe you me, I meet them at the university. They are not bright. They are extremely brilliant. And they set records that you don't even understand. But then there are others who just fall by the way, and it's particularly the case for girls. There are others that fall by the way, and that would be my little response to you. Think it through, approach one, develop a pilot, and when you get the mathematics of the pilot correct, then you laterally extend it. Okay?
We have a question, I think, from Mr. Sugu.
Dr. Hussein, there are so many graduates from the university who cannot find a job in their area. According to you, when last was a manpower survey done? And do you think that that could play a major role in the focus of the university for the future to train people so that wherever their skills are needed, there will be an adequate supply of these people fit for the jobs?
So I designed both Dollar for Dollar and Gate. And we did it, me and Botiwari, we did it as non-political exercises while he was principal at the university. And beyond a certain point in time when the natural gas rent started to flow, our hand was forced and it was taken out of our domain, and they removed the means testing and it became free for all, and so you could go and do literature and the university would produce 300 literature students, but the country could only absorb 10. And then we had to introduce a white-collar CPEP, OJT, to absorb the workers that couldn't fit naturally into the system, so it became complicated. A manpower study, though, is on the way now at the Ministry of Labor. It probably started in the last 2 weeks. It will help, but it would have to be vertically linked back to the educational system. The problem is there is very little work. When you look at the production function that constitutes Trinidad and Tobago, it's very difficult to get work because there is very little work. What I would say, though, is that even though our per capita GDP fell about 21% in real terms, there is the size of the 79% is still reasonably large in relation to other Caribbean countries, that a graduate student could still make a decent income using his or her education. So, to use an example, let us assume that a graduate student decides to go and sell fish. 98% of the fishermen in Trinidad and Tobago will not use Excel. They will not have a PowerPoint chart or Excel diagram as how to market it progressing. They will not understand how to map consumer demand. And so in my understanding, I think there is still tremendous scope to make some money because the 79% of per capita GDP that remains is still of such a magnitude that you could have you could still make $1 million, to use that terminology. But the key fundamental question for the poor graduate student is how can I get involved when I have little money and not get robbed? Because one of the main questions, especially in the context of the available information of the recent home invasions, is that when you go into business, you have to be careful. And you therefore now have to sit with your child and think it through, what kind of business can I open in which there is still some demand, but the probability of me getting a home invasion or robbed on account of the visibility of the business is low. And so it really requires thinking that through. Now, one of the things that young people I find, I have two sons in university. One of them has a plant shop, and I have to keep, both of them are in MedSci. I have to keep talking to him about this is not what you are going to university for. But I see him doing all kind of online trading and all kind of online selling, and it's going really well. The point being, these young people know Twitter and the relevant technology, and they know how to interface and sell and buy things. And I think that therein lies some opportunity, but it is critical. It is critical when they make these type of business interventions that they do it under your supervision and with your guidance, that it doesn't lead to a great increase in the probability of a home invasion and the associated type of crimes that go with that, because then the net results would be negative. So thank you all very much for your time, for listening, and for the questions.
Would you take one more?
Okay.
One more. Final question.
Thank you. Sitaram, firstly, I would like to say how pleased I was to see the stand this temple has taken with regard to preserving the green space across the street. It is a blessing. And following on that, therefore, my interest is in your seed project. I think I may have seen it in activity sometime last year. I just saw these people running to collect seeds from a vehicle. And from an educational perspective and trying to have a united front, I'm interested in how can then this be taken to a level to sensitize, whether we're using the agri-science in school, whether we're going to use social studies. But there must be a way to raise this sensitivity, because when I heard you speak about the CPEP, I was like, wow, I never thought of that. And so I believe then that your contribution with regard to saving our planet with just a seed is something that needs more ventilation. And I would therefore like to know how else more can be learned and maybe support what you are doing with regard to this.
Sitaram, now, Dr. Hussain, this is not a question, but it is along the lines that our good friend here asked, right? I know you may not advertise, but with your permission, if I could mention my association with you, right? Which will also be a form of advertisement, right? As was just said that, and you briefly mentioned it in your speech, the Shaw Foundation, which probably many of our devotees here do not know about. So I just want to say that we see in the newspapers and also in the news where Dr. Hussain and his group, they go throughout the country distributing seedlings free just to promote agriculture. Now that is at a great cost because he does it free, okay? And as a result, his foundation, they sell produce, okay, throughout the country, right? So I will urge our devotees here, if we can support, okay, his foundation, all you need to do is to either give him your number. If you do not want to give him your number, you could give it to me or Marley, and we will get in contact with him, such that he will be able to distribute seedlings and promote agriculture, okay, much more throughout the country. So, Dr. Hussain, forgive me if I advertise your organization, right? Because I know you may not want to do it. Now, Maliv asked me to ask a question, but I already forget what he asked. So let.
Professor, what I'd like you to introduce to our congregation and our community by extension is the model which you use for your sustainability and the extension of agriculture in Trinidad. So can you explain that model to our congregation, please? Thanks.
Okay, so I tried to respond to the three comments all in one. So basically, when we saw the impact COVID-19 was having around the world, in May 2020, we took some serious decisions at the foundation. I am not the president, I am the founder, but other people run the foundation, now I just help them. President is a young girl by the name of Dr. Rebecca Gokul, and we decided we would sell fruits. So every week, about 12 economists, Patrick Watson helps us, about 12 economists, we sell fruits. We sell it in various ways and we raise resources. We take the resources, however we raise it, and on an average we give out between 15,000 to 25,000 seedlings per week, and we give out 25 hampers. We give the hampers out on a system in which somebody have to recommend you. And when they recommend you, they have to give a reason on a questionnaire, and we then decide as to who needs, it's almost like a means test, who is most in need, and we give it out in that way. The sale of the fruits started off very, very slow. And I must mention Mr. Jamant and his brother, they always support us. And it started off very slow. A lot of times I end up ensuring that the week is successful, personally. And it has grown and it has grown. We have found that corporate sponsors have been approaching us in the last 6 months. They come on board, they make investments, and they want a fair share of the output to reflect their names, and it's always a gamble because we want the seedlings to speak for themselves and not necessarily the corporate foundation, the corporate groups to speak on behalf of the seedlings. So it's a management issue. But altogether, we think we have kept it going smooth. So if you want to make these type of interventions and help your community, you have to go out and do the work. So sometimes we would go by the gas station in Crossing, opposite Skinner Park. We would go by one of the gas stations in Marabella, in Vista Bella, owned by a gentleman by the name of Rajasi Pasad, and so on and so forth. And we will put our sapodella on the table and we will sell. But the good thing about doing these type of things is most people support you. Most people, once they see it's a worthy cause, there's still a lot of good in the country, they stop and they support you. So if anybody wants to support, that would be good. You could speak to Mr. Jamon, to his brother, and we will be thankful. But what we would also be interested in is young people coming to help share the seedlings. We are always looking for young people. Yes, we are also interested in other people as well, but particularly the young people, and I am only seeing young people, come out and help us share the seedlings and build up the foundation. And, you know, who knows, maybe as time go by, we branch off into other things. But to really do this, you must have the heart. You must want to help your country. And I think it has been going reasonably well. We have even been able to visit Tobago a few times, and we are currently writing up an academic paper based upon the corporate responsibility of civil society. So that's my response to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Hussain. Please give Professor a round of applause. And I like that we ended the discussion this morning, or the conversation, on that focus on hope, because that was one of the questions that was troubling me. The graphs and the data speak volumes, but I think as an organization, we always try to instill that sense of hope, notwithstanding the challenge. My question for another time would have been, if God was displeased with you and made you prime minister, what would be some of the things that you would recommend in order for us to turn the country? But that's a different conversation. At this juncture, I'd want to invite our Vice Chairman, Mr. Gangadin Sananan, to present a very small token of appreciation to you, Professor Hussain, for your contribution this morning, for your conversation with us, and for taking time out of your very busy schedule, I know, to be with us here this morning at the Mandir. Thank you so very much. And again, it's a small token of appreciation. And I want to say this on behalf of our youth group. We were at once, before COVID, very proud of the dynamism of our youth group. They were something to really be reckoned with, and I'm seeing many of the faces here this morning. COVID really dealt us a very difficult blow with that, but I want to say on behalf of them that we pledge our support not only of the youths, because I think I'm a youth too, right, to your venture and your organization's venture, and we will speak with Jamont to try and hook up that way. And it is something that I think is very important for all of us to join, because sometimes at the Mandir we do things as well, discreetly, but we are not certain that it is making an impact in a tangible or meaningful way. And if it is that those resources and efforts can be focused in targeted ways and in targeted methods, then I think the impact might be greater for the societies and communities that require that help. So we make that commitment this morning, and we will continue to do as much as we can in our own little way to assist in that cause. So thank you once more, Professor Hussain, and thank you for joining with us. Please stay on with us as we continue, if you're able to. But devotees, brothers and sisters, we invite you now as the group engages in Kirtan to join together and as you come forward to perform your arti and so on.
वीर हनुमान अति बलवाना राम राम रसियारे हे प्रभु मन बसियारे वीर हनुमान अति बलवाना राम राम रसियारे हे प्रभु मन बसियारे प्रभु मन बसियारे we have a little volume on mic number 6, please? And vocal number 3.
हर 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 महादेवा
तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है।
शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है।
शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है।
शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है।
दुनिया वाले क्या जाने मेरा रिश्ता पुराना है।
दुनिया वाले क्या जाने मेरा रिश्ता पुराना है। शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है। शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है।
गोकुल में ढूंढा तुझे मथुरा में पाया 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 है। वृंदावन की गलियों में मेरा शाम का दिखाना है। शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है। शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है।
रामायण में ढूंढा तुझे भगवत में पाया 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 है। गीता के पन्नों में मेरा शाम का दिखाना है। शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है। शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है।
गोवालों में ढूंढा तुझे गोपियों में पाया 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 है। राधा जी के राधे मेरा शाम का दिखाना है। शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है। शाम तुझे मिलने का सतसंगिया बहाना है।
मंदिरों में ढूंढा तुझे जंगलों में पाया है।
मंदिरों में ढूंढा तुझे जंगलों में पाया है।
मंदिरों में ढूंढा तुझे
आप ही नाम जन आरत भारी मित ही हो संगत हो ही सुखारी नाम लेत भव सिंधु सुखारी करहु विचार सुजन मन माही उद्धार करो भगवान तुम्हारी शरण पड़े भव पार करो भगवान तुम्हारी शरण पड़े उद्धार करो भगवान तुम्हारी शरण पड़े भव पार करो भगवान तुम्हारी शरण पड़े
शरण परे शरण परे
शरण परे शरण परे उद्धार करो भगवान तुम्हारी शरण परे उद्धार करो भगवान तुम्हारी शरण परे कैसे तेरा नाम सिद्ध्याये कैसे तुम्हारी लगन लगाए कैसे तेरा नाम जुझाए कैसे तुम्हारी लगन लगाए हृदय जुगा दो ज्ञान तुम्हारी शरण पड़े उद्धार करो भगवान तुम्हारी शरण पड़े उद्धार करो भगवान तुम्हारी शरण पड़े पंथ मतोड़ी सुनो सुनो बातें द्वार तेरे तक पहुँचन पाते पंथ मतोड़ी सुनो सुनो बातें द्वार तेरे तक पहुँचन पाते हट के बीच जहान तुम्हारे शरण पड़े उद्धार करो भगवान तुम्हारे शरण पड़े उद्धार करो भगवान तुम्हारे शरण पड़े तू ही श्यामल कृष्ण मुरारी राम तू ही गणपति त्रिपुरारी तू ही श्यामल कृष्ण मुरारी राम तू ही गणपति त्रिपुरारी तुम्हारे मणि हनुमान तुम्हारे शरण पड़े उद्धार करो भगवान तुम्हारे शरण पड़े भव पार करो भगवान तुम्हारे शरण पड़े ऐसे अंतर ज्योत जगाना
Miss Bole Bindravan Bihari Lal Ki Jai. Before we stand for final arti, couple announcements. Again, I want to extend a very warm and cordial welcome to each and everyone this morning. Having joined us in Puja and in Satsang, we look forward to seeing you all with us again next Sunday from 8:30 a.m. physically, preferably. And for those persons who are unable to join with us physically, you can look at us virtually on YouTube or on Facebook. In his absence, I once more, on behalf of all of us, want to extend our appreciation for Professor Roger Hussein's conversation this morning and his message. I think it was very profound and very timely, particularly for our young ones and the need. And one of the things I want to highlight, I know it's 10 o'clock, but please forgive me. This is a gentleman who has a PhD from the University of Cambridge. Just let that sit with us for a moment. And who has the ability, by his own saying and obviously by reputation, to work anywhere in the world. And he has made a conscious decision to remain in Trinidad and Tobago. Not only remain, but to make a positive difference by himself and in conjunction with others for the upliftment of our society and our country. And I think if that is not a powerful example, then I don't know what is. And so it is very important for us, in the midst of the darkness that we are experiencing, and I do not want to dispute that. I will not say that crime affects one part of our society. Crime affects us all. All of us are impacted by crime. All of us are fearful. All of us are anxious, without exception. The only ones who are not fearful are the criminals themselves. And so it is important for us, in the midst of these challenges, economic, societal, individual, financial, whatever they may be, to understand that there is hope. There is hope. There is always hope. And to introspect about what we can do in our own small way, in our own sphere of influence initially, to make a difference. Because many people think that leaving this country is the answer. What you do not hear, and I'm using the words very bluntly, is people catching tail as they are abroad. They are. We catch tail here, we catch tail there, we're a better place than right now in our own country. And therefore, if it is that we make a difference in our own families and in our own lives, we can make a difference. I firmly believe that. And that's why when my friend Jenny, is it Jenny? Yes, who is here with us this morning, stood up and said, as someone who is not a member of the Mandir, who doesn't come here, that she was pleased to see the stance we are taking over the proposed housing development next door. That is the difference I'm talking about. It is not me, it is us. And so that is the example I want us to spread for our young people, that we can make a difference in the midst of challenging times. Is it going to be easy? No, it's going to be hard. But is it worth it? It definitely is. This is our home. This is our country. And the wrongs that we see before us, there are solutions to those problems. And Professor Hussein just gave us one solution to the problem. There are many more. We have a lot of creative minds, a lot of innovation and innovative youths, particularly. And I would want you all to address your minds to that. So in the midst of these challenges that we face, again, as I always say, we must pray. We must pray. But we must never, ever, ever forget to tie our horse. So do the things that are necessary. Be careful, people. When you are going to and from your places, your home, your places of work, your schools, wherever, be vigilant and be mindful. Do not bury your heads in a phone. Do not be oblivious to what is happening around you. Be very much aware, acutely so. And if you see something, then sound an alarm. If you see something, call out. And do not be afraid to do that. Just last night, I am told in Ibis Boulevard in Philippines, there was a home invasion. There was a home invasion, and it was thankfully through the efforts of a neighbor who heard that was able to alert the authorities, and so thankfully no one was harmed because of the intervention of the authorities. If that neighbor did not sound an alarm, that outcome may not have been the same. And so sometimes we shut ourselves in, we close the doors, lock the burglar proofs, and say, that's not my concern. It is everybody's concern. And if you know someone who is engaged in deviant behavior, even if it is your own family member, then call them out on it. Report them to the authorities and let justice take its course. It may be slow, It may not be what we want, but justice too has its own room for improvement. But let us all subscribe to that view. So the message of hope that came after the reality has been painted to us is still there. So brothers and sisters, I want us all to commit ourselves to some thought and introspection about what we can do for our country and what we can do to make this place a better place. And I want us to leave with that this morning as we go about our daily things. And one of the things we can do, next week Saturday, when the mobile unit blood bank is here, we can all come and donate a pint of blood. So the blood bank will be with us next week. Saturday, I want you all to come and give that pint of blood so you can save a life. And in so doing as well, the benefit to your own health is there. So that's one of the many things the ladies group is having. She's the Sabhadi tea party on the 27th of May. Please join, involve yourself in that level of fellowship and camaraderie as well, and all of the other initiatives and ventures that we engage in. We really look forward to seeing you all at the Mandir, joining with us so that together we can make a positive difference in our community and in our country. Let us now stand for final arati and closing prayer. My shoulders, please come back.
Om Jai Jagadish Hare, Swami Jai Jagadish Hare, Bhakt Janon ke sankat, Das Janon ke sankat, Chan mein dur kare. Om Jai Jagadish Hare, विषय विकार मिटा चरणों के संकट क्षण में दूर करे। ओम जय जगदीश हरे, ओम जय जगदीश हरे, ओम जय जगदीश हरे।
Hari Om. O all merciful Lord, we surrender ourselves to you. We seek your divine intervention in our lives, giving us that hope and that courage and that faith to overcome all difficulties that we may be experiencing. We pray in a special way for those persons who are ill, those persons who are ailing in hospitals, nursing homes, or at home. Those persons, O Prabhu, who are engaged in deviant behavior, we ask you to redirect their minds. So once more, that they would tread that path that leads them to you, that they would avoid all acts of criminality that causes harm to so many people. For you, O Lord, are mother and father, you are family, you are friend, you are knowledge, you are wealth, you are everything to us, O Prabhu. We surrender ourselves completely to you. Hari Om. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhu Cha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti, 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 Hari Om. प्रेम से बोले श्री गणेश भगवान की जय, उमापति महादेव की जय, वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय, आज शक्ति जगदम्बा देवी मैया की जय, श्री पवन पुत्र हनुमान की जय। प्रेम से बोले श्री सच्चे सनातन धर्म की जय। Turn to those around you, सब कोई जय सीताराम, जय सीताराम, जय सीताराम। For those of you celebrating birthdays or anniversaries, we wish you Bhagwan Ji's blessings. We wish you all a very safe, a very productive, and a very healthy week ahead. And we look forward to seeing you all with us next Sunday. Remember the blood bank's visit next Saturday on the 6th, and we will be having a special service for Mother's Day on the 14th of May. Jai Sitaram, everyone.